Dear students, welcome to the sixth information video. This video will be about solving the social issue. We already learned how working and living conditions changed for the factory workers in the 19th century. Today we will look who tried to defend the factory workers and which solutions they came up with. In this picture, you can see what the situation was like during that time. You can see the factory owner. He's neatly dressed, and you can clearly see the difference between him and the factory workers. He is rich and he is holding a whip to whip the factory workers inside the factory. The factory is depicted as a terrible creature. You can see that the workers are literally eaten by the factory. You also see that the factory workers are wearing worn down clothing because they don't have enough money to buy good clothing to protect them against the dangerous work in the factory. You can also see that there are not a lot of windows, and the windows that you do see are very small. There's hardly any fresh air or light inside the factory. More and more people start to realize that this situation isn't fair. Eventually, there were more and more people that started to stand up for these factory workers and wanted to help them. Like doctors, people from the church, teachers, journalists. They named the hard life of the factory workers the social issue. Today we will look at the groups that tried to defend the rights of the factory owners and the solutions that they came up with. The first thing the factory workers did is start working together. They started to unite in labor unions. This meant that people who had the same job started to unite together and started protesting for their cause to have a better working condition. This way, they tried to make the working conditions better and make the wages higher. One factory worker couldn't really make a difference because they would just get fired, and there would have been enough people to take over their job because of the big unemployment. But a big group of factory workers could make a difference. Together, they were a lot stronger. They would rise or organize a big strike and would all stop their work for a while. This way, the factory owner had a big problem because he would lose money if the factory workers stopped working. They wanted an 8-hour workday instead of 12 or 14, and they also wanted 8 hours of free time and 8 hours of rest, so sleep. They also wanted higher wages, but the factory owners did not just give the workers what they wanted. They were very strict when workers started a strike. They were the boss and did not want to lose this. They wanted to control their lives of the factory workers as much as possible. The factory owner, owned their houses and also wanted to control their free time. An example of this is that a lot of factory owners would open a bar next to the factory. This way, he tried to make sure that the factory workers would work together because he made them completely dependent on him. They tried everything just to make sure that the workers would not work together to revolt against the factory owners. In addition to the workers, there were also a few different political groups with their own view on the social issue. You need to know the next 3 political movements. The first one is liberalism. This word comes from the word liberal, which means in Dutch vrijheid. They thought the government should give everyone as much freedom as they could. They were not allowed to interfere with the rules that the factory owners had in their factory. They were inspired by the ideas of Adam Smith. He had described how the system of capitalism works. With capitalism, making a profit is the main goal, and everyone has the freedom to do this in the way he or she wants. The liberals believe that the price of products are determined by supply and demand, vraag en aanbod. And the government should not get involved in this. They did not want any rules or laws that make the life of factory workers better. This was up to the factory owners, and the circumstances would get better because of the supply and demand. Another group are the communists. They chose the side of the factory workers. They thought it was very unfair that there was such a big difference between poor and rich. They thought that the factory owners should not have this much freedom because then they would keep using the factory workers to earn money. The important people inspired communism. Oh, sorry. Two important people inspired communism. It's Karl Marx and Friedrich Engels. They both wrote books about the difference between the poor and rich, and that it would not disappear by itself. They thought that if things stayed the same, a big group of factory workers would rise up together and revolt against the system and the rich factory owners. They called this the class struggle between rich and poor. Marx wanted the workers to win this revolution. After they had won, they would divide all the riches between the factory owners and workers. The land, factories, and money would become common goods instead of owned by someone. So everyone had the same right to this. This way, the difference between poor and rich would go away. They wanted everyone to be equal. The last group you guys need to know are the socialists or social democrats. Just like the communists, they were on the side of the factory workers. They also wanted more equality, but they did have a different idea on how to reach more equality. They did not want to do this with a violent revolt or class struggle. No, they wanted to reach equality in a peaceful way and a political reform. They wanted new laws to improve the position of workers, give them higher wages and give them a better life. They wanted to reach this by getting the highest number of votes. They were pro-democracy and the voting right for everyone, because only that way they could get the majority of the votes, because only the rich people could vote in the Netherlands. That's the reason why only liberals had been in the Dutch government up till now.